Hello viewers, welcome to K Diagnostics. Dio here. Today we have a 2003 Audi A4 with a 1.8 liter. The customer complaint is that there is a weird light that's coming on and off on the dashboard. I'm just repeating what he said. He called me and said, Dio, there's this weird light that's coming on. I don't know what it is. We also have to keep in mind that this car has a check engine light on, but we're not going to address the check engine light issue. We're not going to address what's causing the check engine light to come on this video. We're just going to look at that weird light and address that because that's what he wants us to fix right now. The good thing the customer did was when that light was coming on, since it's intermittent, it comes on and off. Once it came on, it took a picture and sent it to me. As I got the picture, I already knew what it was. I will show you guys that picture in a few. But before we do anything, let's go inside the car and scan it for any trouble codes and see what we're gonna find. And then I will show you guys the picture he sent me. And after that, we'll see what directions we're gonna go with this. So let's go inside the car and scan it for some trouble codes. All right, so I got the scanner connected to the car. So let's hit scanner. It is a Audi. Let's set vehicle selection. It is a 2003. Let's see if we can auto ID it. No, we're gonna have to enter the vehicle's info manually. It's a A4 1.8. Let's do a all system scan. Let's do code scan. So this is going to scan all the modules on the car. So it looks like the scan tool is still scanning some of the control modules that are on the car. And it is obvious that this car has got a bunch of trouble codes in it. So we're not going to worry about these codes right here. So there are 2 codes on the engine control module. These O2 sensor codes. And then 4 codes on the air conditioning control module. But we're going to worry about these codes right here, especially these 2. We're not going to worry about this one that says radio no communication because the radio had been replaced. So it has an aftermarket radio in it. That's why that code is set. But these 2 are the ones we're going to address. Why? Because these 2 codes here, as you guys can see, these codes are on the instrument cluster control module. And the codes here say sensor for oil level / temperature, open circuit / short with power intermittent. And this actually, especially this intermittent code actually explains, confirms to me what the customer was experiencing. I just clicked on that code. So let me show you what the customer sent to me. The customer sent me this picture. Okay, so like he said that this light was coming on and off. It doesn't stay on permanently, but every once in a while this light will come on. And when it first came on, he freaked out. He thought his engine was running out of oil. So as you guys can see, this is the picture that he sent me. And when I saw this light, I already knew that either his oil temperature sensor was faulty or is about to go bad. So that's why we're only going to focus on those other codes. So we're not going to focus on the check engine light. So our intelligent diagnostics here tell us that if these codes comes up, the problem is most likely the sensor. Replace engine oil level sensor. Okay, so this is some good information to have, and we can look at data. We can look at functional tests we can do, but that's not necessary right now. So let's just back out of here. And since this is intermittent, it's kind of on and off, And when I test drove the car, when I brought it inside the shop, that light is not on the dash. As you guys can see right here, let me start the car. So right now it says okay. So the instrument panel control module is not seeing that fault right now. So that sensor is not acting up. So that's why the light is not there. Okay. So we're just gonna go with based on the trouble codes we just got from the scanner. These two codes right here, and based on the picture, okay, based on the picture that the customer sent to me. So the next step is, I mean, it's a temperature sensor, technically a thermistor, you know, but this one is a 3-wire sensor. Let me turn this off a little bit. And we can either look at how the sensor works and see what kind of reading we're supposed to get at certain temperatures, but I don't think that's necessary right now. Let's just look at the wiring and see. I mean, I believe it, you know, it's a 3-wire sensor, so it's probably power, ground, and then a signal wire. Let's go to our service information here. And again, this is, it depends on whoever is doing this. There isn't one specific way of doing this. One might want to look at, you know, data PID, you know, one might want to start it and look at data PID and stuff, but I don't think that's necessary right now. So let's write engine oil temperature sensor. Okay, right there. Okay, so we can look at the top fixes. You know, this is good to have because you can have some info provided by other professional technicians like me. You know, you can click on that and see what others have done when they dealt with this issue. So this one right here, real fixes, fluid leaks from vehicle, replace engine oil pressure sensor. So this one, basically, we can click on it and see what was done to fix it. But I already checked around the engine bay. There is an oil leak on this car. And what I'm interested in is the wiring diagram. And as you guys can see, this is the instrument cluster here on the left hand side, and these are the sensors that report to the instrument cluster control module. And the sensor we're working on is up top here. So here is our sensor, this oil level thermal sensor here. I hope you guys can see this. So this is the sensor we are actually gonna focus on. And this sensor is got a power feed right here. So it's fed power by this fuse number 5. It's a 10 amp fuse. So it sends power to it. And this one is actually hard when the key is turned on. So when you turn the key on, this fuse is powered. Then it sends power to our sensor. And then the middle wire here, the second wire, the brown wire, is a constant ground. Okay, so this is grounded. And then this other wire here, let me see if I can highlight it. Yeah, so this wire right here that I just highlighted is a signal wire that reports to the instrument cluster control module. Okay, so now that we know that we're supposed to have power and ground on our sensor, technically most 3-wire sensors work this way. Power, ground, and then a signal wire. Let's go under the car This sensor is actually under the oil pan. Let's go under the car and take some measurements there. After we're done taking some measurements, if everything comes out okay, we can replace the sensor. The other thing we could do is, I did a little bit of research on this sensor to see what kind of readings we're supposed to get at different temperatures. Hold on, let's go to components. Because the other way is to like check the temperature, the sensor reading at different temperatures, or maybe the sensor resistance. But I couldn't find, useful information about the sensor. Oil level sensor. Okay, right here. Or engine, let's write engine oil, because there are a couple. It might give us the transmission. Okay, so engine oil level sensor. Okay, so on this one right here, all right, so this is just a procedure to check if we have good oil level and oil pressure. So we don't need this. We already looked at the wiring diagram. So I thought I could find some valuable information here under spec, but it's not telling us anything really informative or anything really important to us. So pretty much what it's suggesting is that you gotta check your oil level first, make sure you got the right oil level, and then do a oil pressure test. I don't even know why it's asking for oil pressure test, because this is not the oil pressure sensor. This is the oil level and temperature sensor. Okay, so nothing valuable there, and here on the symptoms, it says if the engine oil pressure light comes on or oil level light comes on, then the problem is probably the engine oil level sensor. So the sensor is usually the issue when this light comes on. Okay. So what we could do is the other, I always like to check and to really find out if the component is defective. What we could do is we can take the component out and do a ohm test on it. To, we can just check the resistance on the sensor and then compare it to the new one. Or we can check the engine temperature right now and take the reading and let the engine warm up and take another reading and compare it to the new one and see if there will be any difference. But I think the issue is the sensor. But we're not just gonna throw a sensor in it. We have to do some testing first to be 100% sure the issue is the sensor. So let's go under the car and do some tests. All right, guys, so I got the car up in the air, and here is our oil level / oil temperature sensor. And guess what I found, guys? Let me zoom you guys in so you can see what I'm talking about. It looks like the sensor itself is not even faulty. The problem is the wiring. So look at these wires here. Look at this wire, and then this one. What do you see on this third wire right here? This third wire is completely almost broken. So it's only staying on like a couple of strings. If I pull on it, I'm gonna break it. Do you guys see that wire right there? Do you see that? Yeah. So this third wire, it looks like a green and red tracer. I don't know which one is that. We can double check on the wiring diagram, but I don't know, whatever wire it is, whether it's a ground wire or signal wire or power supply wire. So the sensor is not working because of this. So that's why the code is intermittent. So maybe sometimes when it kind of moves like this, it makes contact and then it works. But then when it doesn't make any contact, then that light comes on. So it triggers the light on the dash. So this is our issue right here. So I think actually the problem is not the sensor, it's the wire itself. So watch this. Watch, I'm gonna pull on it. There you go. See? Yeah, see, I just broke it. I just broke it with this peak right here. See? And it's actually broken right at the connector. I don't know what happened. I don't know if a mouse came down here and chewed this wire. I don't really know what happened, but this is definitely an issue. I'll see if I have this type of connector here. I'll just replace the whole connector. If I don't, I'll try to get this wire out so I can maybe solder it, or I'll prefer just to get a connector and replace a connector on it. So I believe the sensor is still good. The problem is right here. So let's fix this connector, put it back together, and call this a day. So oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. I mean, with these wires sticking out like this, we're gonna have to check that fuse too and make sure the fuse is good and the ground wire. I mean, once I get this connector fixed or replaced, we're gonna have to check these wires too and make sure the fuse is good and the ground wire and everything else. Man, because this is a mess. Okay, you can't just twist wires like this and put electric tape around them. You have to either solder them or use some good bad connectors, shrink connectors that they're selling out there. All right, this is unbelievable. Don't be a dirty technician, guys. Don't be a dirty mechanic. Just be professional. Don't do this. This is gonna guarantee a comeback. Don't do that. All right. Anyways, I'm gonna take this out. See if I just pulled it, and the whole thing just came out. Unbelievable, right? All right, let me see if I can find this connector somewhere here, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys. So I got this replacement connector here, but the only difference is the wires are not the same color. But what I'm gonna do, it's the same exact connector, as you guys can see. Same connector, but just different color wires. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go like this and then connect this wire. I'm gonna find this color wire on the harness side and then connect it to the wire on the connector side, this one. And then so I'm gonna do one wire at a time, making sure I put the right wire on the right side of the connector. And this connector right here has got pin numbers. I don't know, you're probably not going to be able to see this, but these wires are numbered on the connector. There's number 1, 2, and 3. And our number 1 on the original connector right here that had the broken wire is the black wire and red strap. So on our new connector, it's going to be this brown wire with a black tracer. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. I will, connect one wire at a time and then connect it back up. And this is what I'm gonna use, guys. I'm gonna use this shrink bad connectors. I will use these shrink connectors here. These work just fine. Don't do like what whoever did this, what the other guys did. Don't just twist the wires and then wrap them around with electric tape. Don't do that. You have to either use these. These work very well because they actually shrink when you heat them up, or solder the wires. Okay, this is really fast and they work really well. This is what we're gonna do. Alright guys, so I got the connector replaced. As you guys can see, it's all taped up and ready to go. I actually used some shrink connectors to connect the wires together. And so now the next step is going to be checking power and ground at the connector. So I got to make sure we have power and ground coming down here. You know, knowing that the older wires the older wires on the other connector were sticking out. Maybe the ground wire and the power wire attached to each other, which can blow the fuse. So we have to make sure we have power and ground coming here. And if we do, that's going to tell us that our fuse is good. So I am looking at my wiring diagram here, okay, on this scanner. The wiring diagram says the black wire and red tracer, which is going to be this wire right here, wire number 1, is our power supply. So I'm going to back probe this wire. And then the wire number 2, which is our brown wire, is the ground. Okay. So I gotta make sure these guys don't touch each other as I'm back probing this. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect some jumper wires here and put a test light across these two. Again, with the key on, if everything is good, this test light should light. As you can see, our test light is not lighting. So what I'm gonna do is I gotta make sure the key is on, and also I gotta make sure that the fuse, this fuse that supplies power to this sensor, is good. So now let's lower the car and check that. Alright guys, I went inside the car and checked the fuse. Guess why the test light wasn't lighting? Because of these guys. Because this fuse is open. I hope you guys can see this. So the fuse is blown, okay? And with those wires sticking up, I mean, this is obvious. The fuse was gonna blow because, you know, the ground wire touched the power wire, which blew this fuse. This can be dangerous on computer-controlled systems, because if this were controlled by some type of driver inside a computer, this power wire touching the ground wire could have damaged the computer driver, okay, the driver inside the computer. So you have to make sure that when you do this thing, especially when you deal with wires, take your time to, you know, tape your wires, use, you know, solder wires together, or use those, you know, shrink butt connectors that do not expose wires, because once the wires are exposed, they can touch somewhere that they're not supposed to touch and damage other things, okay. Luckily it only damaged the fuse, but other things could have been at stake here. So when you do this kind of work, guys, be careful and don't just be, you know, a dirty mechanic out there. Just be careful, be professional, and be clean, okay? So now that I got the fuse replaced, we're gonna test our power and ground at the connector. We gotta make sure we are receiving power and ground here. So I'm gonna use these back probes. The middle wire, so the number 2 is our ground. And then the other wire, the first wire here on the left hand side of the connector, is our power feed. So, and as you do that, be careful, because you don't want these back probes touching each other. If they do touch each other, you blow the fuse again. Or on a computer controlled circuit, you mess up the driver inside the computer. So you don't want to do that. You want to be careful as you do these kind of tests. So remember before, when I put a test light across these wires, the test light didn't light. So if everything is working fine right now, if our ground wire and power wire is good, this test light should light. when I connect it right here. If everything is good, this test light should light. Unless I'm not making good connection here, this test light here should be able to light. Alright, so I just wasn't making good connection. So as you guys can see, our test light is lit. I hope you can see that. Let me make sure the camera is picking that up. Yeah. So as you guys can see, our test light is lit now. Before, the test light couldn't light up, okay? It just didn't light up earlier because I wasn't making good connection. So right there, we have power and ground coming to our connector. And I like using the test light because it loads the circuit. So if you have a wire that's not good, the test light is not going to light. Okay, so now I'm going to disconnect the test light and connect our electrical connector back up. All right. So that's connected. Now what we're gonna do, let's lower the car and wrap up this video. Alright guys, so I got the car off the lift now, and let's just recap what we did. Here is our wiring diagram. So what we just did was the connector on this sensor here, this wire, actually the wire that was broken was this black, no, this red and gray right here. So this signal wire here is the wire that was broken, and this wire was good, and so was the other one, okay? And when I replaced the connector, I put everything back together. We put the test light across these two wires with the key on. Nothing was happening. Nothing happened because this fuse here was blown. So I had to come inside the car on the left hand side of the instrument cluster. That's where the in-vehicle fuse box is. I was able to locate the fuse. I replaced it, and after replacing the fuse, the test light was able to light up. So with the test light coming on, I mean the test light lighting, that tells me that our ground is good and this wire also is good. Okay, so we don't have to look at the wiring diagram anymore. Actually, let's get out of here. What we can look at now is, let's see if that trouble code is still in memory. I mean, it should still be there, or the vehicle has to be driven. I don't know. I didn't look at the monitor on this. I don't know what it has to see for the monitor to run. I don't know how the monitor that actually monitors that sensor runs. So I mean, that's not necessary. We don't have to test drive it and see that the monitor runs. Instrument cluster, this is what we need. But knowing that that wire was completely broken, and let's read some codes here, and the fuse was also open, so no wonder that light was coming on. Okay, so we still have these codes in memory, you know. So the car has to be driven, and then the ECM is going to run that monitor to check this, and once it finds out that the codes are not there or the fault is no longer there, it's going to clear this. But I mean, this is a fix, guys, knowing that that wire was open and the fuse was blown, so we replaced the fuse and then we replaced the connector. So that's going to do it. I mean, I can comfortably clear these codes and give this car back to the customer, because I know that this problem is not going to come back up. I'm just double checking. So yeah, the radio code is still going to be there because there's an aftermarket radio on it, but those other two codes for the oil temperature sensor won't come back up. I mean, you guys saw the wire and the fuse that I just replaced. Okay, so this is a fix, guys. I hope you like this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why. Once again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, K Diagnostics, and ring the bell while you are down there so that you can get notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks, guys. See you next time.